My Hero Academia. Now, honestly, with the final season rapidly approaching and having honestly just done reviews straight towards season 6 and then 7, so going all the way back to the beginning is sort of like a whiplash. But I'm gonna do this a bit slightly different. Obviously, characters and story section is still gonna happen. Visuals, I mean, honestly, it doesn't need to be said. Like, as time went on with like the different seasons, it rapidly improved. But there's a lot about this season, like the 13 episodes, and how obviously there's like mini arcs scattered all around to make a whole conglomerate of a season, which is, I mean, a good thing, because it's like Demon Slayer, how they had like little mini arcs that led to like the bigger stuff, which in this one, it's all setting up to the big confrontation with Shigaraki, the first big Nomu fight, All Might and his ideologies. But there's so much about like this season alone that not only tells us immediately the problems with the Hero Society, but it basically has a lot of strong storytelling for like the beginning of My Hero Academia, which I can see how it got popular for sure now after having a rewatch, because I haven't really rewatched season 1, and honestly that is my bad. But let's get to the review. This is my take on what I think My Hero season 1, or what My Hero Academia season 1 is, because honestly it's actually pretty good. So let's get started. When it comes down to the world building, there isn't so much more that they're explaining a few things like hero status and stuff in terms of like the second half of this season and a bit of the first half, whenever it's like all related to UA, because that is mainly the focus of this season. It's more condensed with the characters, the students of Class 1A. It's more of a focus on them and their journey towards heroism, because this is like their first steps. But when we go into the broader aspect of things, such as like hero ranking systems, how the world is viewing or living with quirks, with people with powers, how there's like this minority of people that don't have quirks, that are born quirkless and remain quirkless, which is probably why there's still a few policemen, because they basically deal with things that aren't quirk related, while the heroes who have a quirk license, or a hero license I mean, have the capabilities of dealing with more quirk related issues. But I did put a video out that goes a little more in depth on the problem with the hero ranking system. It's just this one sorta does a lot more, that there's a lot of competition, unless All Might's involved. There's a lot of competition in attempting to figure out, like, outbeat the other, and like say one hero does the job but someone else comes in and they're way more popular, they take the credit. Which, I mean, it's not a thing about having envious of why am I not getting the credit, but the problem comes down to, you do have heroes who start to resent, and then you have like conflicts and stuff, unless it's All Might. I think the funny thing with All Might is that he is literally the reason like things aren't over crazy with villains, because his presence alone just signifies the heroism that he is, considering that he's the main reason that everything is peaceful, him and his goddarn smile and his abilities, which we'll get into in its own section. But I will say, Hero Society at this point isn't crazy. It's sort of stable, but it has its issues. The hero ranking system, I'd go more over it, but this season doesn't really dive into that aspect. However, that does spawn people like Season 1 Bakugo, who is a complete other jackass. But that's, like I said, in due time. But there's a video if you want to go sidetrack it after this video, go watch it. It goes more in depth on the problems with the hero ranking system. But in terms of the world, I think it does its best. It still has like the focus of the school, because that is where the main protagonist, the main cast, and the side characters are mainly going to be focused on. So I think this season did well to at least show aspects of the world, but that they aren't really relevant to this season, because it's all about the whole entrance exam, getting into the hero courses, and all that fun stuff that is, well, I guess, hero version of high school. Okay, so for this section, main characters, I would like to focus specifically on the trio that is Deku, Bakugo, and All Might, because these three kind of make up the main character cast. Although you could argue Ochako and Ida have like importance, it's still a lot of focus on Deku, Bakugo, and their rivalry, as well as the fact that we have the Deku, All Might, Master and Student dynamic. So for mainly Deku and Bakugo, a lot of it starts off as you'd expect from those who remembered, Bakugo being a complete utter prick to Deku as a kid, especially the fact that Deku's entire dream was shattered whenever he learned that he's quirkless, which, I mean, it really sucks for him, which kind of shows two sides of the same coin in a sense, where Deku is shunned because he's quirkless and constantly pulled down, all the while Bakugo has this supposedly super strong quirk, because I don't really see it as strong. Hell, I'd even say Shoto's is better, but that's besides the point. So you have Bakugo where everyone's constantly praising him, boosting his ego, stroking it, like quite literally making him be at the very top. So you have two very opposite sides, although it's really baffling whenever you have them consider each other childhood friends with all the shit that Bakugo does. But interestingly enough, Deku, despite being quirkless and despite like everything that everyone said about him being useless and stuff, hell, even the whole thing of him being able to meet All Might and All Might essentially shattering the dream of saying, you can't be a hero without a quirk. Like, Deku still shows that he is a hero at heart, because when Bakugo was in danger, like, that caused Deku to just say fuck it and go running into danger, even though it could have gotten him killed, and even though it didn't, he essentially got into so much trouble because of it. But even so, he still went and tried to help. Now, this actually motivated All Might, because despite the fact that All Might at this point, like, he'd already revealed the whole time limit stuff that he can't really do much, that bravery and show of heroism inspired All Might to jump in and essentially save both of them. And not only that, but gave Deku, like, the greatest thing in telling him he can be a hero, which essentially allowed Deku to once again reunite that dream. And that's obviously through All Might giving him one for all. But that on the side note, Bakugo. Now, Bakugo is a bitch. Let's not get anything wrong. He is a dickhead in this season. However, I can't help but say he does back his words by the end of the season, but that's a side point. The main thing is he definitely dislikes it whenever someone like Deku helps him, because it basically gives this inferiority complex thing of that if he's being helped by others, then he is actually weak, which is something that goes against everything that everyone's been telling him and his own philosophy. So we have that going on. Deku, like, igniting back, like, some confidence in himself, essentially getting out of that weakness that he's been constantly shoved his whole life. So overcoming that. And there's a lot of signs of it. Like, Deku during the exam showed heroism once again. Like, he couldn't get a single point by that metrics, and yet he sacrificed going into UA to help Ochako because she was in danger, and he did not hesitate. He moved, used his entire power, essentially, well, damaged himself and almost could have gone killed, and yet it was fine with him because that is the nature of Deku. He is a hero. And yeah, we do see throughout the season that the one-for-all power, like, Deku really did got a lot of training before getting the one-for-all power. Like, thanks to All Might, he essentially got fit, and not only that, he overdid it. All Might chastised him for that, but they readjusted, they fixed that, he got one for all, and yeah, his body's trying to accustomize to that such overpowered ability, especially when we learn later on it stacks itself a lot more with each user. Deku, throughout the season, is learning how to stand up for himself and to now rely on this new godly power, because it is kind of OP as hell. But I also want to make a note that Deku, despite not being able to fight like normally, because obviously he's learning his new quirk from zero, he clearly shows that he is capable in a fight. Like, against the slug thing, like, he did calculate on what he should do. Against Bakugo, he predicted his attack and was able to essentially slam him down. And he actually got the best of him because he was able to get him and Ochako a win against Bakugo and Ida. Like, they got the win during the training arc, the heroes and villains training arc. And, or that's what I'll call it. But this shows Deku is improving. Like, he's rapidly improving. He's not going to be as strong as All Might in one season. That'd be absurd. But his body has to accustomize to it. He's learning how to control the power. It's just he needs time for his body to be able to handle that much output. Even just a tiny bit can damage him. And yeah, not only that, but Deku's constant show of heroism inspires All Might. It reminds All Might of, well, himself, of his ideals of wanting to save everyone. And this is shown a lot throughout the season. Like, All Might was motivated to help Deku and Bakugo and go past his limits. He basically did that again at the end of the season when they had to fight the Nomu. And even then, like, All Might is the embodiment of a hero. And Bakugo. Now, obviously, Bakugo is such a hothead, and everyone in the class figures that out. But they tease him, which is obviously something Deku is not accustomed to, because who the hell would tease Bakugo? But during the final, the UA attack, essentially, Bakugo shows that he can fight, and he is smart. Like, as much as I hate Bakugo, I can't really take away credit where credit's due, and Bakugo was able to pin Kurogiri and essentially figure out how to kind of deal with him, was able to hold his own against what he would call low-level thugs, or I guess low-level NPCs. And yeah, like, he wasn't able to really fight the Nomu. Like, even All Might was struggling because he had passed his limit, and at that point he was, like, barely able to handle that. But he basically shows, like, he is a capable hero, or, well, fighter more than hero. But he just really has a long way to go, because that anger issue, my dude, it is insane. But yeah, overall, I gotta say, this main cast, pretty damn good. In regards to the side cast, that's mainly like the other classmates. We got Aizawa, who is actually a good teacher. Like, despite the fact that he has like a rough exterior and is pretty tough on everyone, he genuinely found Deku enough of someone who can learn, to the point where he would have expelled him according to All Might. Like, he does expel people if he views them unworthy. But even when Deku ended up in last and he said whoever's last is getting expelled, like, Aizawa saw that. I mean, Deku is learning. He just needs, well, help controlling his power. But Aizawa is a damn good teacher. And hell, he even put his life on the line against enemies. Like, he's normally a stealth fighter. He's not like a direct fighter against multiple people. That's like a disadvantage. And dude was actually doing well on his own until obviously Shigaraki came in and started wrecking his shit. But that's one character who's really good. Ida. Now, Ida has a character arc, because I completely was caught off guard with how much of a brat he really sounded like, an annoyance. But also how he overestimates Deku's like whole intelligence, because he does say that, oh, if I known about this, I would have also saved Ochako. It's like, dude, you didn't. Like, get over it. You were selfish, essentially. And you let Deku there. Like, Deku was stunned, Ochako was pinned, and you guys didn't do anything. So you were just as helpless as everyone else. That's mainly my annoyance with him, but he does grow. I genuinely can see him growing into being a leader. And that's the interesting part. Everyone kind of put Deku, like, Ida put Deku to be the one to be, like, the class president. Deku still has his own arc to go through. Like, he needs to build up his confidence and stuff, so he doesn't feel it. But Ida, like, despite him being, well, annoying, he definitely has that president-like attitude. Like, he's serious, he's on point on things, and it's just, he developed into understanding that he needs to put himself into the position of a leadership role, and then him being the biggest key factor that they need him to run so he can get All Might, because otherwise they are all going to die during the UA attack, which is obviously pretty cool. Ochako's not really has a big character arc, but there are moments where I say, like, she is such a kind-hearted character. And, I mean, this is the beginning of the Deku Ochako ship. I mean, let's be freaking obvious on that. But Ochako is one of the more important friends of Deku. especially with the fact that she went to tell everyone that if need be, she would give some points from her, what she got, to Deku, because she valued that Deku risked everything to save her. And it is just quite wholesome. And it's just pretty impressive having just a genuinely kind character. Now, she gets a lot more next season because, you know, the whole tournament stuff. But I definitely can see, like, this is the beginnings of Deku and Ochako stuff. Ochako essentially saving Deku's life and essentially being someone who's had Deku's back from the start, really. And then you have, like, all the other classmates. Like, each one has their own thing. But because there's so many characters, it would take forever to kind of go. But, I mean, it's a fine cast. Like, that's the main thing with this one. It's not too crazy in terms of every single character has a big story arc. No, it takes its time to really focus on what the real important characters should be focused on, which I kind of like to a degree. Like Deku, Bakugo, and All Might, I think, are going to be the main focus. They're like the main characters, but the side characters are not bad either. Like, they genuinely provide something for our main cast. As for the story of My Hero Academia Season 1, this is kind of a underdog story because Deku essentially is quirkless, and by the end of the season, like, he's still not the strongest. Let's not get that wrong. Like, if he were to be in a big fight, one-on-one, he would still lose due to the fact that he still needs to be careful on how he fights, and some quirks can beat him. But he does gain a better grasp of his power. Hell, he definitely starts improving in his whole inferiority, incompetence, or not incompetence, but self-loathing kind of arc, where he basically is bullied and can't really do anything about it. And then when he does get a quirk, like, he can finally stand up to Bakugo for a moment. He's doing a bunch of stuff. He's intelligent enough to pick up on a few things. Like, the story is of these kids that are going to be heroes. And with the first arc being the whole getting, like, everything where it should be to lead into the exam, then the exam stuff happens, and where we show, like, more or less who really are the true heroes here, being that Deku is the more truer hero. And it's interesting that Deku got a bunch of saving points, but no, like, enemy points per se. Like, he didn't destroy any robot. And alternatively, Bakugo got, like, a bunch of those points, but didn't get any saving points. So they're, like I said, two sides of one coin. But the main importance of it is also All Might. Like, All Might is this hero who is limited on what he can do, and he's going to this teaching role. The original reason was to find a one-for-all successor, but because he found Deku, like, right before that, now he has to genuinely help him out, as well as not be biased and try to help all those students out. And also having to deal with his own inferiority in a sense, because he's now having to push himself more and more, because outside of losing one for all slowly, it's the fact that he is still weak. That injury he got from one of the fights that, I mean, at this point, if you know, like, that's holding him back from really being able to do a bunch of crazy stuff every day. And by the end of the season, he pushes his limits to such a point that, I mean, he looks like a badass by the end of the fight against the Nomu. Like, he shows what he's capable of, even when backed into a corner. And that is the inspiring thing of this season, is that it's these characters that have, obviously, the main ones being Deku and All Might, like, they have their own issues, but they're able to surpass it by the end of the season. Now, there's still a lot more to go to, because obviously we got up to season 8 that'll come out soon, but it just shows you, like, just the beginnings, how everything started, and how crazy it is when we do look at the end. Now, when it comes down to the antagonists, the real ones is really Shigaraki. Like, yeah, you have these villain slug, but he's not really important. He's mainly just plot device. And then you have, say, Kurogiri, but he's more of an assistant. And then you have, like, the villains that are attacking the students. And then the Nomu, but the Nomu's not even a villain in the sense of having a personality. So Shigaraki, what can we say? He's a crazy villain who was pretty smart. Like, dude used the media to get, like, into UA and essentially do his shenanigans to, well, originally trap All Might from the beginning, but obviously that kind of didn't work because All Might wasn't there. So he basically shows he has some competence. Obviously no one really likes Shigaraki at this point because, well, he's a bland villain. So I can't really say much, and I don't really want to add stuff from later seasons because that's obviously not fair. But I will say he's entertaining enough, I guess. Like, if we're just saying purely this season, he's fine to an extent. Like, he knows he can't really fight and beat All Might in an actual one-on-one. So his whole Nomu plan and Kurogiri plan of using, like, the portal or whatever Kurogiri can use in order to essentially cut All Might into pieces was not a bad idea. It just didn't work because others interfered with that plan. So, I mean, you know, it is what it is. But, I mean, as a main season villain, he's not bad. Like, he's genuinely not bad. I'm being serious. Like, he's fine as this season's main antagonist. Like, the main obstacle was All Might facing the Nomu, something that you can't really just easily punch it with one super strong punch, as well as the fact that he's, like, limited because he's overused his body and stuff. So there's a lot of different factors that all play into this. But, I mean, Shigaraki is essentially on the fine category, at least, obviously, for this season. Now, for the theme of My Hero Academia Season 1, what do I think? Heroism. What is to be a hero? A lot of it comes down to that because Deku wanted to be a hero from his childhood before that dream completely shattered. Obviously, Bakugo wants to be a hero, though not necessarily for the reasons of heroism, more because he wants to be the best of the best and views All Might as the rule, not the exception. And obviously, All Might being the heroism because keep this in mind, going back to the main character cast, these three push each other to being the best of themselves. Deku clearly wants to surpass Bakugo. Bakugo wants, obviously, being beaten by Deku, is more strive to want to be, well, more in All Might's level than ever before. And then All Might is motivated to push himself more whenever Deku is, like, showing traits of heroism. Like, literally, those first two episodes, All Might wasn't going to really be able to help Bakugo, but Deku, without hesitating, jumped into danger because it is what a hero would do. Just go and save someone, which he does, like, multiple times in this season. But All Might seeing that pushed him to, once again, push himself to being into his hero-like attire, or I guess his hero form, and, well, save the day, like, twice. At the beginning of the season was a lot because he saw Deku as, well, as an inspiration, and at the end of the season, his entire, like, the students he's teaching helped them, like, push themselves to reach essentially the highest level he could at that moment, because he is very weak at that point, and he surpassed his limits. Like, he showed what it means to be a hero. It's pushing yourself to save others. And Deku really does show that, not just to save Bakugo, but to save Ochako. So, heroism is basically the main theme of this season, and I really like how they tackled it. To wrap this up in a nice little bow, I just want to say that in regards to this season, I genuinely think it's an 8 out of 10. Like, yeah, it has its little flaws here and there. I mean, Bakugo's a piece of shit. He improves. And some of the other characters are kind of just side characters. They don't have a lot, but then again, I mean, this is the beginning, so I'm not going to really give it too much shit for that, especially how, honestly, that's more of a problem as a overall series that, honestly, there's too many fucking characters. But despite that, I really like the small environment being focused on literally the school stuff, them training up to be a hero, like getting to the point, building Deku up, because yes, everyone may, like, still memes that he cries a lot and stuff. However, like, this first season, it's a lot of him trying to get over that inferiority complex issue, because he was really shit on his whole life by that point. And him getting that quirk is the first steps of being, like, this eventual hero that will match with All Might. And oh my god, if anyone's the MVP of this season, it's All Might. Like, All Might is probably one of the best characters to follow, because he has quite an interesting arc to go through. And this is just the beginning. Like, remember, this is season 1, the very beginning of things. So I'm not going to expect the highest of tiers, especially where I consider seasons 3 and 6 to be the peak of My Hero Academia. But I genuinely think this is still a very strong start. So 8 out of 10 for this season. I definitely found myself enjoying the season. This is Going Warrior 291 signing out. I hope you liked this review. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.